I'm here today to share with you everything that you need to know about Plike. This is a brand new paper line at 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. And yes, it's called Plike, and that stands for plastic like. So although it is truly paper, it's made of paper fibers, it has the feel and some of the mannerisms of plastic. So it's really fun, cool stuff. Now, the first thing that you'll notice when you experience this is that it has a really soft touch. So if you've ever felt like a really nice, luxurious business card and it has that kind of soft touch feel, all of this paper feels that way. And then you'll also notice how rich the colors are. So smooth cardstock, you'll get a nice rich all the way through color, but this just feels like, I don't know, it's just a whole nother level. The colors are just really vibrant and it looks like really expensive paper. So it comes in 8 different colors. There's a royal blue. This is actually a navy blue. It's a very dark navy blue. And you can kind of tell when you put it against the black that it is indeed blue. This is Bordeaux, red, white, black, graphite, and then a dark brown. So those are the 8 colors, and let me share with you what I learned. I've done a ton of testing on this and kind of played around to see what cool features it has. So let me share with you what I found out. So the first thing I did is test cut it on my Cricut Maker, and it does indeed cut really well. You can see, some of these stars are pretty tiny, the thin little letters. It cuts fabulous. It's really heavy. So it's 121 pound weight. And so you do need to use the poster board setting, and I had to do 2 cuts on the poster board setting. The poster board setting already goes around twice, so technically you're cutting it 4 times. It's really thick, but you get just those beautiful clean cuts. And then the other thing that I really noticed about this is how well it folds. So for 121 pound paper, usually when you fold those, it'll crack along the edge or just split, but this really just folds amazing. I didn't even score that. I'm not using a bone folder. It doesn't crack at all. It really folds nicely. So I think this would be awesome for like dimensional projects that you need some stability, but you want to be able to fold as well. And if you score it, then you'll definitely, you'll get these crisp creases as well. So this is a little card I made for graduation. That's one of the things immediately that stood out to me about this paper is how rich the colors are, how luxurious the paper feels, and how the colors are kind of like school colors. So I made this little graduation announcement. It just tucks in here, but you can see how well everything folds. It's just really great stuff. It makes everything feel kind of just class it up a bit. So that is one project. And then, like I said, I'm just in love with the rich colors. So I had this idea to make little Lego cards. And so that was the next thing, taking advantage of the beautiful colors. Now, one thing that I did notice on the Plike, I tried to print it on my home printer. I did not have any success because the paper's so thick, it has a hard time feeding through. So you may have different results, just kind of depending on how your printer works. If it, how it feeds, you may or may not be able to feed it through. I wasn't able to tell if the ink will dry quickly or not because I couldn't get it to feed through. So that's one word of caution on this. But those are my little Lego cards, and you can see I did emboss and how nice the white embossing shows up on the black. Okay, now let's talk about some of the cool things you can do with this paper. So obviously I mentioned die cutting. Die cuts really well, no problems there. I messed around with some inks. I did have mixed results on this because it is plastic-like. Some of the inks take a bit longer to dry. So I tried the Tim Holtz Distress inks, and you'll see on this little tag, this is what happens with the Distress Oxide ink. You stamp it and then you're able to smudge it. So see, even now, it's been about an hour since I stamped this. I can still smudge it. I did try heating it up, and heat doesn't really seem to do the trick. The heating, it doesn't seem to make it dry any faster. But this one has been sitting for a while, so that one is dry. And if you just let it dry by itself, it seems to work great. So I just let it dry overnight. That one's good. This one was also Distressed Oxide inks, and they blend beautifully on the paper because they do sit on the surface a bit more. And then you can see I hit it with some water to kind of get those cool speckles. But then again, I had to let this sit for about 24 hours to dry. So that's with the Tim Holtz Distress inks. And then I tried some dye inks. Now I love how beautifully these blend and how rich the colors are, just because it does sit on top of the paper. I was able to hit this with my heat gun, and it did seem to work on the dye ink, so it doesn't smudge off. That was a bad example because that finger was already dirty with the ink, but it doesn't smudge off after you've hit it with the heat. So some really fun possibilities for ink blending with dye inks. I think watercolors would be interesting to play with too and see what that does. So that's a fun technique. And then the other thing I really loved is how cool gel pens look on this, because it sits on the surface. This is gold gel pen on black. And I didn't have any problem with the gel pens. They seem to dry immediately. I don't know if the difference is there, but those ones didn't smear at all when I did it, even immediately after I had done it. And again, this little flower is colored in with a gel pen, but the ink just sits right on the top of the surface, which really makes it look cool. All right, there you have it. That is Plike. And again, it's 121 pound weight. It is acid-free and chlorine-free, and it is real paper, even though it feels like plastic. So we hope you'll check this out, and we cannot wait to see what you make with it.